Hey there, David coming to you from Hilton Head Health on the beautiful Hilton Head Island for another episode of Health Talk. Today we have a very special guest. Her name is Julie Martin, and she is a retirement coach, but not quite what you think. Not the financial side of retirement, the non-financial side of retirement. Finding your sense of purpose, staying social, staying active, all of those things and things that she'll probably inform me about along the way. So a lot of exciting things to talk about. Julie worked in the corporate world for over 32 years in sales, marketing, and HR. She's recognized for her ability to lead and develop future leaders. She's a certified professional retirement coach. And Julie, is there anything I missed?
Well, I think what's important is how I even got into this business, because most people don't even know that this business exists, David. And it does exist. There is an industry. It's a Retirement Coaches Association. It's been in existence for about 12 years now. And
Wow.
how I happened into the business is I want to share because it's kind of important. I'm a golfer, and I was reading an article, I think it was a year and a half ago, about it was called "The Retirement Coach is Like a Golf Caddy." Piqued my interest. It was in the Golf Digest magazine. Piqued my interest, and all of a sudden I look at who wrote the article, and her name is Sue Mintz, and Sue was a previous employee of mine over 22 years ago at AT&T in human resources. So I reached out. Sue's in a sense become a retirement coach. So I reached out to her. I said, tell me more. And that piqued my interest. And it's like, wow, retirement on the non-financial side, I've never thought about that. And so I went ahead and got my certification last year, started my business, and now I have the business of Retire Ready Hilton Head. And basically what I do and love to do is help people plan for the non-financial side of retirement for everyday life. So that I just wanted to share how I enjoy this business.
Well, so you focus on the non-financial side. Can you elaborate on what those elements are of the non-financial side?
The physical, emotional. When I say spiritual, it's not about going to church, but how to reconnect with yourself. Because what people don't understand when they're retired is they have worked all their lives at whatever job, whether it was a corporate job, whether it was they were a doctor, a lawyer, a school teacher, whatnot, and their job was their identity their entire life. And all, whether they worked for 20, 30, 40 years, all of a sudden that identity when they retire is no longer who they are. They're now retired. Retired to do what? So a lot of people struggle with that in terms of, not so much financial, because they've probably set money aside all these years for whether through pension plans or through 401ks or other funds. So it's not so much the financial side as how do they cope with the non-financial side? What are they going to do emotionally? How are they going to stay healthy? How are they going to stay connected? So what I do and the resources that I use, and I'll share in a few moments, is really to help them focus on that and build their plan to do just that. I want, if I can, review a few statistics.
Please. I'd love to hear them.
Staggering. There's two sets. Retirement ranks in the top 10 of life's most stressful events. I mean, it is up there with, the death of a loved one, the loss of a job, and things like that. So for new retirees, new retirees meaning anywhere from 1 to 3 years in retirement, it takes about 2 years to settle into retirement. So most people don't think about that. They think, come day one of retirement, no alarm, I get up and I go. And then all of a sudden, yeah, that honeymoon phase is great, 2 weeks, 2 months and whatnot. But after that, they realize, what, this is not what it's cut out to be. It's like,
what am I doing with all this?
I have a purpose here. So 46% of the new retirees struggle to find a new purpose. What is their new identity? What are they going to do? What is meaningful in their lives? And of those 46%, 36% mention the difficulty in learning how to organize their time. Because think about it, when you're at work, you show up, you've got things to do, meetings to go to, reports to do and all that. So your day is structured. When you retire, you don't have structure in your day unless you set structure. And most people, unfortunately, don't. So, and then 27% report feeling out of sync with either their unretiring partner or their friends. Because not everybody retires at the same time. You've got a husband that might retire sooner than their spouse or vice versa. And then friends, a lot of friends don't retire at the same time. So those friends that are retired, they want to go do happy hour. Well, guess what? I consider myself still, Sunday night through Thursday night is still school night for me. So those are the things that, I always tell people, if I could save you 1 to 2 years to settle into retirement, then that's a win. Okay. I want to share one more set of statistics, if you don't mind.
Please.
This talks about the average life expectancy of people who retire. We're finding now, studies find that people retire earlier. COVID was a big caused that to be? Because some people, were furloughed during COVID, and then afterwards they were maybe in their 50s, mid-50s. So you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and retire. I can. And so they did.
That happened to my mom, actually.
Did it?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a prime example. But what happens is, let's just say you retire at 60. Let's just use that age. A lot of people will live 20, 30 years. They'll live well into their 80s and 90s, and some of them will live very healthily into those years. So they don't take that into consideration, that that's like a third of their lives. That's a third of their life to be retired to do what? So the fact of having a plan to do the what is very important. Okay. Now, when I say that people retire a little earlier, that's when we put that in hours of free time now. It's 2.5 trillion hours of free time. Did you know every single day 10,000 Americans turn 65?
I did not know that.
That is staggering. But it's true. It doesn't mean they all retire, but it means they turn 65. So that's a lot of time that people have on their hands to do what? Not necessarily anything yet. So today there are 68 million retirees in this country and in the United States alone. Again, that's 2.5 trillion hours of free time. 89% of retirees we have found would like to find new ways to use their talents and knowledge to find a new purpose. So that is what, with the tools and resources that I have and I use in my coaching practice, that is what I focus on.
Actually.
So just wanted to share that because it's staggering.
Yeah. Well, so with the clients that you've worked with one-on-one or in the small group setting, what are some of the common barriers you see with a retiree finding that new routine, finding that new purpose?
Is that purpose, their identity?
Okay.
They struggle with that. Most of the time when I primarily work with one-on-ones, couples. I do workshops, and I'll explain that in a moment. But when I work with a client will reach out to me, first of all, for a free introductory session, just to make sure we're a good fit. They know what I do and how I do it and whatnot. Most of the time, I will use what we call a retirement wellness workbook.
Which you're holding right there.
Which I'm holding right here. Okay. It's not a big workbook, but it is very significant as to the activities that we do. So we talk about, what's a no regrets retirement plan? What would be your perfect retirement? And I'm working through the workbook here. And then I asked him, okay, and we do this through a series of activities. And I said, so what would be your perfect day in retirement? And they say from morning, afternoon, and evening. And then I asked them, what would be your perfect week in retirement, from Sunday to Saturday. And they start Sunday, I'm going to wake up, have a coffee, read the paper, and whatnot. Then Monday comes along, and Tuesday, and then all of a sudden Wednesday's like, man, this is like digital roll over again. It's like, so that's when we talk about having a significant plan to focus on. So then we flip the page and we say, imagine that after you retire, your doctor informs you that you have 5 years to live. And
that's quite the thought experiment.
But for some retirees, that happens. We have found statistics have shown that retired people who now retire, some of them either get sick when they retire and or eventually die sooner than they had planned. That's the sad part. But we talk about that. So I ask them, so what would be important for you now in your retirement? Well, most of them say spending more time with family, traveling, doing all that. Then we flip the page literally. And I say, suppose during our routine checkup, your doctor suddenly informs you just have 48 hours to live. Okay. Now it's not about scrambling to say, hey, I want to travel more and do all that. That's just 2 days. I just said that earlier with this.
With the television.
Now it's more focused on what hopes and dreams will you have to let go of? What was it that you were planning on doing that you may never get to do? Don't let go of that. What do you wish you had accomplished? Seeing, felt, or experienced just one more time, and what regrets would you have? And that is pretty poignant for a lot of my clients when we come to that, because they don't think about things like that. A lot of people think they're going to live forever. We know we won't, but a lot of people think that way.
Yeah, that kind of is a slap in the face. Like,
it all turns positive after that. Then we talk about, and this is done over a few sessions, but we talk about the curious list. On the curious list, it's not your bucket list. It's not, it's really when you were working, you were really, really busy. What is it that you were thinking? It's like, when I have more time, I want to do this. I want to learn how to play the piano. I want to write a book. I want to, whatever it is. And I give them some ideas, but they come up with a list of, 10 to 15 that they write right down. The other thing I want to say about this workbook is everything is written. It is known by studies that anything that's written usually gets done. Okay, so this is theirs to keep. So they write down their curious list and things. Doesn't mean they're going to do all this. It means they might want to research something, get more curious.
Would you say it's like one step below a bucket list? Like,
it's one
you don't have to do it, but you're curious about it.
But you're curious about it. You're going to maybe do some fact finding, and then you might realize, you know what? It's not what all it's cut out to be. I'm going to scratch that off.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then we chart the friend list. Okay. We talk about who is important in your life that you want to either reconnect with, stay connected with, or connect with as a new friend. So people, as they retire, maybe join a country club, join, a community, move or whatnot. So there might be some new friends on their list that they add, but there also may be some childhood friends that they hadn't thought about. Mm-hmm. So again, we identified 10 to 15. We're going to narrow all of this down. And I ask about what makes a good friend. Don't go with we always say, your parents told you when you were young to, associate yourself with positive people that will bring the best out of you and whatnot. This is the same thing.
Same idea.
Same.
Get with the right crowd.
Then we move into the retirement well-being. Okay, this is where, when I've done workshops at Hilton Head Health, we talk about, you're here for a reason for your well-being. Well, let's talk about how that's going to carry into retirement. So we talk about healthy habits, identify 3 health-related habits that you plan to continue or start doing when you retire. I always say to my clients, retirement is not that big Pandora's box that opens up and say, oh my God, everything's going to be perfect. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to get healthy. It doesn't happen that way. Guess what? The morning after the day you retire, everything seems the same. If you're not healthy, you're still not healthy. You haven't done anything to plan for that. So start doing it now before you retire.
So when you say start doing it now, how early before retirement should someone start considering something like that?
The ideal client, I'm going to go into, sometimes some people ask me, what's your ideal client?
Sure.
Ideal client for me is somebody who's maybe a year to 2 years from retiring.
Okay.
I'm just finished up with a client last week who is retiring next July 2024. And she wanted a year to plan out, and she was the ideal client. She's excited about retirement. We worked off the plan and all that. So then we talk about, to continue about health opportunities. What items do you have now that are of issue that you need to address before you retire? And keep in mind, I work with retirees too. So what we do there is just restructure their retirement. We could start over. It's not the end of the world if they haven't retired so well in the first few years. Let's turn them around real quickly.
Okay.
I do that a lot. Then we talk about health concerns. I think at Hilton Head Health, you all help identify that because you do routine checkups and all that. But there's some people who, when they come to retirement, they don't think about all the hereditary issues that they might have had in their families. Mm-hmm. We always say you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? If you have family hereditary background with, high blood pressure, high cholesterol or cancer or whatnot, those are potentially going to carry into your life in retirement. So address those things now and get checked and do your checkups and identify and be proactive about those things that you can be proactive now. Mm-hmm. So this culminates into basically it's pretty simple thing, but it's a 1-page retirement wellness plan and a book. So we carry everything that we did on all the activities into a one plan. I even added a place where it says, if you could create your own retirement bumper sticker, what would it read?
That's your slogan.
It's your slogan. So,
do you have an example of one?
One is retired for life, enjoy life now. I remember that one vividly. Every now and then I'll write a few down. I want to borrow that one. Now I've got about 10, 15 that I've borrowed. And some are just have fun. It could be as simple as that. But that's kind of gets people's juice.
The root of their...
It's the root of their essence.
Yeah.
It's the root of their essence. So that is the retirement wellness plan that usually I work with, either with one-on-one clients, with couples, but also in a workshop setting, like I've done at Hilton Head Health. It's the same premise, except it goes a little faster.
Gotcha.
You don't have the time to delve in. I don't have the time to do the one-on-one,
right.
Just tell me more. My biggest thing is tell me more. What do you mean by that? Why would this friend be a good friend? Why would this curious item on your list be a good curious item? So we dive much deeper when it's a one-on-one versus in a group setting.
Now, have you with any clients had some? Well, I guess you said you started a year or two ago with okay.
1 year ago.
Do you anticipate having clients who come back to you in a few years saying, "I want to shift my retirement goals"?
Yes, I'm going to explain two things. Shift retirement goals, yes, because for some people, they have gotten, what I find the biggest thing is people want to do in retirement is do volunteer work. And sometimes what I have found is those volunteer opportunities turn into potentially as an encore career. There's a big initiative right now being worked in the county and in the country with the Chamber of Commerce called the Encore Career Initiative.
That's cool.
What we have found, and I've been involved in that, but what we have found is that some people retire with all the great intentions, and then we know the stock market hasn't done well and their funds may not have done as well. And then now they're finding themselves either needing to go back to work for some level of income or just wanting to go back to work because they have that passion to go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm finding is some people who are doing volunteer work are saying, hey, if I'm going to do this for a volunteer, I'm not supposed to go do it to earn a whole income. So we're seeing that people going into encore careers, and that's becoming more and more popular. And because they want to learn and grow and, again, have another sense of purpose. So that's very common for retirees to go back to work. So you can have multiple retirements. You can retire once and unretire. You can retire twice and unretire. And there's no road on that. There's no set story on that. You can retire as many times as you want and then come back as many times as you want.
I guess the point is someone that you might be working with is financially set, but all those other things, whether they're working or not working, they need a way to maintain their purpose, maintain their health.
Not long ago, who had been retired 5 years. No, she had retired in a town in Ohio, and her husband wanted to move to Hilton, had to eventually live their retirement years. And she moved here, and she's very introvert. So she had a lot of difficulty finding new friends and finding a new purpose identity here. Mm-hmm. And she suffered from it, almost to the point of depression. Wow. So she reached out to me through, actually it was a WHN Talk with the Town interview that I had. And she said, look, I'd like to talk to you. And I tried out to a meeting, see if it was a good fit. And what we found is that she was very lonely and she didn't have a direction. So she felt she was a failure because she'd been retired 5 years and all of a sudden it wasn't going well at all. I said, look, first of all, you're not a failure. It happens a lot. Let's look at redirecting your retirement. Did the same thing, utilize this all over again. This is my go-to.
That workbook.
And we walked through it. I said, let's just pretend that you're going to retire again. Let's start over. Let's restructure. Her eyes lit up. And from the time I worked through her over a period of 6 weeks, and it was just nice to see the introverted person come out and be excited about certain things. So that was, those are wins when I get to see that.
You gave her like a sense of a new beginning.
New retirement life, basically, is not why, and she even told me that, she said, you made me realize that, I wasn't at my end here, there's a new beginning. So it makes me feel good when it's awesome things.
And you mentioned working with her for 6 weeks. How many sessions, how much time what does that look like?
When I work with the client, I have packages of either 3 sessions or 5. I can work by the hour. I'll show up some tools in there in a moment that I can, if somebody just needs a little nudge to get going, I have a couple of tools to do that.
Okay.
And I'll explain one in particular that I really like. But most people will like the fact that they wanted a few sessions. It's either 3-session package or 5-session package. I laugh and I joke because people will ask me, what's the difference between a 3 and a 5-session package? It's, well, other than the price, it's the same thing, except some people require a little more hand-holding. They don't want to do homework, so they want me to be there to be there with them when they do their homework. So that's a 5-session package.
I see.
And a 3-session package is more, hey, I can do things on my own and let's just reconvene and then we'll go over what I did. So works well either way. It still accomplishes the retirement wellness workbook and achieving other things. And that works. So I'd say it's 50-50. People want the 5 and people want the 3.
Gotcha.
But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. Same thing.
So the person who you met with for 6 weeks, she did the 5-session package?
We did 3 sessions.
3 sessions spread out over.
Every 2 weeks we met. Yep. And that is a good amount of time. I had one client last year who really wanted to get through it pretty quickly. So we did her every single week. We met for 3 weeks. And at the end, and she had a goal in mind, and she was
driven.
Just retired. And she was driven because there was a need, because her marriage was starting to take a toll because of the retirement.
I see.
So that happens too when you think about it. It's like you've got a couple that have been together for a long, long time, and they had children, and now their children all of a sudden are gone and they're empty nesters. And then one of them retires and everything, all of a sudden he or she is there all day long. And it's not like, the dishes aren't always clean and you come, it changes. It changes
Sure.
the dynamics of a couple when people retire at different times. And this was becoming to affect her. And we just talked through things and how to re-engage with her. I have a resources called how to prepare your marriage for retirement.
Oh, that's its own resource.
Resources that I
That's a good one.
And anybody who wishes to reach out to me, I can certainly email it to them. But it's that there's 3 great resources that I use.
What's one of the strategies on that one?
Have a discussion before you retire.
Okay.
Talk about what it's going to look like in the household. If you've got a husband, let's say that is more like went into work more like at 10 o'clock, but you went into work at 8 o'clock and and talk about what it's going to look like. If you're used to having a really, really clean kitchen, but your husband is not so much the clean freak, talk about what that's going to look like. It's communication. At the end of the day,
that makes sense.
It's down to communication.
Gotcha.
Because all of a sudden, your husband, let's say the husband was gone all the time and he traveled a lot and you ran the household and you ran it the way you wanted. Well, now all of a sudden, if the husband retires, he's at home a lot more. He never knew how to clean a dish or how to put things away or how to organize a few things or do a load of laundry. All of a sudden, that is a big issue. So before it starts boiling up, talk about it. That's the biggest premise of that particular.
Gotcha. Like, hey, this is coming up. We're going to be spending a lot more time together. Yeah.
I also talked about another resource is the dark side of retirement.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
That talks more about what people don't realize is there's a lot of depression in retirees. Pretty high percentage. And reason being is people find themselves when they retire, it's like I say, they lost their sense of purpose, their identity. Happy hour comes earlier. A lot of times, they start drinking and or turn to prescription drugs, and that is a downward spiral. So be careful of that. And if that's hereditary in your family, that could happen, then you just be sensitive. So it talks about the dark side in terms of the high level of depression rate and how to stay away from that and how to engage and basically how to have a plan for everyday life.
So that's its own workbook, its own worksheet?
It's not a workshop. It's just a guide. It's the guide. It's complimentary. I offer it for free.
Gotcha.
If people just want to reach out to me and request it, I will just email it.
So what's one strategy that the dark side of retirement workbook offers?
Have a plan. Associate yourself with positive people. Have a good curious list, things that you can focus on.
The stuff in your workbook goes back. Yeah.
Well, down to this. So one thing I want to share that is also part of my program when I work with a client for 3 or 5 sessions is a legacy notebook.
Okay.
This is, and even sometimes I have some friends that say, Juliana, I certainly don't need your services. I'm perfectly happy in retirement. And I'm not for everybody. I say that to everybody. I'm not for everybody. But when I say that's fine, but I said, if you ever want to pass down your wisdom versus just your wealth, let me know, because I have a great resource for that. It's a legacy notebook. And again, it's a workbook, it's in writing, and it talks about, basically some people want to pass down, their values and how they grew up and some memories of their childhood and it talks about, it's basically 7 key areas that we talked about. It's your acknowledgement, your values and your beliefs, your top 5 lessons learned, advice and hopes for the future, expressions of love and gratitude, favorite memories, traditions, etc. And a summary, basically remember me for. So when my clients, and this is part of the session packages that I work on, when my clients fill this out, it's also written and all that. When they fill this out, a lot of people say, should I just include this with my will, with my paperwork and all that with my will? And so of course you can. And of course you should. It's just not your wealth, but it's your wisdom. So I had a client one time ask me, so this was pretty precious. I've had a great grandmother's peach recipe in my family that's been passed down generation to generation. Should I include it? I said, if you want to staple it in here, by all means do.
Gotcha.
Some people will do it electronically. It can be done electronically, but some people like the paper pencil feature. And so this provides that. So this will become more and more popular with those people who want to pass down their legacy.
Gotcha. So whether it's recipes or
what thoughts or values, some I'll use me as an example. My father taught me early on that being frugal, saving, and putting money aside for my own retirement, financial retirement, was important. So when I got my first job at 23 at AT&T, he said, Julie, you're going to have a great form of retirement plan called the 401k. We'll start putting as much money as you can in that plan. And we're talking, 35 years later, do the math now, you know how old I am. 35 years later, I have a very nice retirement nest egg.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
And that was a value and a lesson that my dad taught me very young in age. And to this day, I'm still pretty frugal and still very careful with how I spend my money. And that has helped. So I try to instill with my clients those lessons learned, those values, those beliefs that you've had or you had growing up that you want to pass down to whether it's your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. Now's the time that you have to a source
to log that down and pass that on.
Exactly.
That sounds cool. That's really,
yeah.
That's probably a therapeutic process for them too. It almost acts as like a journaling process.
Journaling process.
Yeah.
They basically kind of put it out there for themselves. Sometimes when people write, it's like you say, it is very therapeutic.
Yeah.
And I do a workshop for this. When people want to do it in a workshop setting, I work with some retirement communities in the area, but that is a workshop that can be done in terms of in 90 minutes with a group that they each would have their book and they each will write their things and they leave. And it's a pretty fun way to do that.
That seems like a very valuable experience because not only are you journaling, getting the journaling benefits, but the main purpose of it is you're sharing all of that with people you care about.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yes, I may.
Yeah, you may.
One tool that I use with clients when it's one-on-one, and it's called the Thriving Retirement with Positive Psychology. All of my work is done around positive psychology, and the tool that we use is called PERMA. It is an acronym, it's STAN, and this is what literally the tool looks like. And the P stands for positive emotion, E is engagement, R is relationships, M is meaning, and A is accomplishments. And we talk about, when I sit down with a client or with a husband and wife or with a group, we talk about what brought you all of these elements in your work life. Okay, this is talking about work life. So what brought you positive emotion, engagement? Well, engagement, you had meetings, you had people to see, you had relationships, well, you had, friends that you maybe went to lunch with at work and whatever, meaning, accomplishments, how did you get measured? Well, so they write things down on the work column. And then I'm like, okay, you're going to be retiring here soon, or you have been retired. What now brings you those meanings in retirement? So some people start scratching their head.
I was just going to ask.
Especially when we come down to accomplishments, because they're like, what do you find? Since I've been retired, really, I have nothing to speak of. Think about when you were at work, you got measured, you got performance reviews. And, when I was at Microsoft, we had big time performance reviews. But in retirement, nobody's going to performance review you unless you do it yourself or you have a friend or a spouse or, build it in. So it resonates with people saying, well, I need to think this through in terms of how am I going to carry all of these positive emotions from my work life that it came automatically into my retirement life. So something to think about, very, very powerful tool. We do this early on in my session when I work with clients. So they kind of resonate, they can start resonating with what is going to be impactful and carries over into their workbook.
Gotcha.
Another tool that I use is the retirement transition wheel. This is very simple. It's basically just a wheel that measures basically 12 key areas of a successful retirement and we do this early on in the process, where they feel they are on that scale. So for example, I'm just going to use one, financial security. Okay. If 1 is low, 7 is high. So the goal is to have, as wide a circle as possible connected, but a lot of times we're jagged in the middle or in the one.
Like a polygon.
Exactly. So there's one that's mental, emotional health, physical health, exercise routine. Those are usually the ones that I see in the 2 or 3 categories. So those are the areas. So it helps me as the coach realize with my client, okay, these are areas that we want to focus on. And that basically gets me to say, when we focus on the curious list and the friends list and the health issues that we really want to hone in on.
Gotcha.
It's a very simple tool, but very powerful at the same time.
Nice.
So those are a few of the tools that I use. One that I want to share that's fairly recent. It'll be a year in November that this came out. Through the Retirement Coaches Association, we now have a retirement intelligence assessment. So it is literally a tool. It's a online assessment. It has about 50 some questions that basically provides a 15-page report as to your different stages of retirement. It really assesses you against your retirement knowledge, your work life, and your personal life. So how prepared are you? And this is really for someone who is pre-retired. So ideal person here who is willing to, ideal would be somebody who's like 5 years from retirement.
Okay.
But most people 5 years from retirement are not thinking about retirement. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
So if I can catch a client or a potential client that's 1 to 2 years from retirement, they're willing and wanting to do this assessment to see how prepared they are, that is the perfect world.
Okay.
Because it basically measures them against different aspects of those 3 areas and gives them a report to think about. And a lot of times if they engage with my services, then we can really focus on those areas that they were weaker at.
Gotcha.
So it becomes quite popular.
Okay. And what's that called again? The Retirement
Intelligence, the RQ assessment.
Gotcha.
RQ, like
IQ.
RQ, retirement
intelligence.
assessment. So I offer that for free for clients who, when they work with me, I offer that as a free tool.
Gotcha.
Resource. So, what other questions do you have?
Yeah.
Covered quite a bit.
You did cover quite a bit. Well, do you have any final words of wisdom for our listeners as they look forward into their retirement or continue dealing with their retirement?
Probably 2 words of wisdom, if I may. First of all, retirement is an exciting time of life. It's and a lot of people call it a new chapter in life, and it's an important chapter in life, and it's a chapter that could be a third of your life if you look at it that way. So whether you use a coach or not, or friends or family, plan for it accordingly. Do the right things in terms of, don't think that retirement's going to come automatically when the day after you have your retirement party and you do all that, or if you don't have retirement, the day the alarm doesn't go off. That's one thing that most people say, I can't wait to not have an alarm wake me up. Seriously.
I believe it.
Hear that time again. But be prepared for when that alarm doesn't go off and you wake up maybe at 9 o'clock in the morning instead of 6 o'clock in the morning. And at the end of the day, ask yourself, how was my day productive today? So be prepared to answer yourself those questions. And if you need help in terms of planning for that, to make sure that you're really productive in retirement, you have purpose and a sense of identity, then that will help you be very, very happy and healthy in retirement. Don't get on the dark side.
Right. Okay. Stay away from that dark side. So if someone wanted to learn more, work with you, learn more about what you do, where can they go to do that?
They can go, you probably, unless you can zoom in on this, but they can go to retirereadyhiltonhead.com. That's my website. It gives you all the details. If you wish to, request the free resources that I talked about in terms of the 3, right here. How to prepare your America for retirement. 3 things no one tells you about retirement or the dark side. You can request that there, and I'll be happy to send that to you. And then my phone number is 425-241-8808. And I always do. If you even think you have interest in working with a retirement coach, I always do an introductory meeting, which is free, complimentary. It's 20 to 30 minutes just to see if, one, you need my services, because you might just need somebody like me to say, you know what, you don't need me. What you need to do is X, Y, Z. Or then we identify, if you do need me, then I say, this is how I work it. I always say this tongue in cheek, and I'm going to say it here. I'm a coach. I am not a counselor. I'm not a shrink. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I'm a coach. So I'm that person who's going to listen to you, who's going to nudge you, who's going to say, have you thought about this? Would you be willing to do that? But I'm not going to push you in any direction. That has to come from you. That's what a coach does. It's going to come from you. So I always been very, very clear up front that I'm not going to do the heavy lifting for you. You're going to do that, but I'm going to simply help you and guide you through that. So that's, I think, the best words of wisdom that I can give.
I love that. Well, Julie, thank you so much for your time today. This has been very informative. Yes, and those of you listening, watching back home, If you are nearing retirement or in retirement, have you thought much about your non-financial side of retirement? And if not, it's worth considering, and we've got resources here. Julie's a great person to contact if you would like some support with that. Let us know what you thought of this podcast. Did you get value from it? At the end of the day, we are here to serve value to you. Let us know what other topics you'd like to hear, who else you'd like us to interview. And as always, thank you for joining the podcast. We'll see you at the next one.